Don't stop. Don't scream. Don't look back. Emily didn't know where the words came from. They slid into her mind like a whisper she hadn't invited, clear and sharp as a blade. She shook her head as if that could dislodge the thought and tightened her grip on the steering wheel. The road ahead narrowed, the headlights carving a pale tunnel through the forest, trees pressing in on both sides like they were leaning closer to listen. She had taken the turn by accident. At least, that's what she told herself. The GPS had glitched, gone black for a heartbeat, then rerouted her off the highway and onto this long, cracked strip of asphalt that felt older than it should be. No signs. No reflectors. No cell signal. Just trees. Endless, towering trees with bark like scarred flesh and branches twisted together so tightly they blotted out the stars. Emily checked the dashboard clock. 11:47 p.m. She exhaled slowly, trying to calm the tight, fluttering panic in her chest. Just keep driving, she told herself. Forests end. Roads reconnect. This is nothing. But the forest didn't feel like nothing. It felt aware. The temperature dropped suddenly, fog spilling across the road in low, crawling sheets. Her headlights caught movement in the mist, shadows shifting just beyond the beam. She leaned forward, squinting, pulse quickening. Then the car shuddered. The engine coughed once. Twice. No, 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 Emily whispered, tapping the gas. The dashboard lights flickered. The radio cut to static, a shrill hiss that made her flinch. The car slowed despite her foot pressing harder on the pedal, as if the road itself were gripping the tires, dragging her back. With a final, choking rattle, the engine died. The car rolled a few feet and stopped. Silence fell like a held breath. Emily sat frozen, hands locked on the wheel, listening to the tick-tick of cooling metal. The forest pressed in, dense and unmoving. No insects. No wind. No distant highway hum. Just an unnatural stillness that made her ears ring. Okay, she said out loud, her voice thin and brittle. Okay. It's fine. She reached for her phone. No service. Not even emergency bars. The screen dimmed slightly, as if embarrassed for her. A prickle crept up her spine. She glanced in the rearview mirror. For a moment, she thought she saw something standing on the road behind her, tall, crooked, its outline blurred by fog. Her heart slammed against her ribs. She blinked. Nothing. Just trees and mist. Get out and check the engine, her rational mind urged. You've done this before. But another thought, quiet, instinctive, ancient, rose up beneath it. Don't. Emily swallowed. Her mouth tasted metallic. Still, she forced the door open. The cold hit her immediately, sharp enough to steal her breath. The smell of damp earth and rot filled her nose. She stepped out, boots crunching softly on gravel, and the car door creaked shut behind her, the sound unnaturally loud. The forest loomed. She popped the hood. Steam curled up, disappearing into the fog. She stared at the mess of metal and hoses, utterly useless knowledge rattling around her brain. She didn't belong here. Every nerve in her body screamed that truth. A sound drifted through the trees. Not an animal. Not the wind. Footsteps. Slow. Deliberate. Crunching leaves. Emily's head snapped up. Hello, she called before she could stop herself. The footsteps paused. Then continued. Closer now, circling rather than approaching directly. Her stomach twisted. Is someone there? She tried again, louder, panic seeping into her tone. Something answered. A low, wet chuckle echoed through the forest, distorted, almost playful. It didn't sound human, not fully. It sounded like a voice that had forgotten how to be one. Emily slammed the hood shut and stumbled back toward the car. Her pulse roared in her ears. She fumbled with the door handle, hands slick with sweat. From the corner of her eye, she saw movement between the trees. Figures. At least 3 of them. They were tall. But wrong somehow, limbs bent at unnatural angles, heads cocked as if studying her. Pale skin stretched tight over sharp bone, streaked with dirt and something darker. One of them stepped forward, and the fog peeled back just enough for her to see its face. Its mouth was too wide. Its teeth were broken, jagged, stained dark red. Emily screamed. The sound ripped out of her, raw and desperate, and the forest answered. More laughter echoed, overlapping, surrounding her. The figures moved faster now, slipping through the trees with horrifying ease. She yanked the door open and threw herself inside, slamming it shut and locking it, heart hammering so hard she thought it might burst. She fumbled for the keys, still in the ignition, twisting them again and again. Nothing. A hand slapped against the driver's side window. Emily shrieked, jerking away. The glass rattled but didn't break. A face pressed close, fogging the window from the outside. Its eyes were small and bright, burning with hunger and amusement. The voice came again, clearer this time, right beside her ear. "Don't stop," it whispered. Another knock, this one from behind her. "Don't scream." A shape passed slowly behind the car, just visible through the rearview mirror. "Don't look back." Emily squeezed her eyes shut, tears streaming down her face, as the forest of Bloodwood closed in, patient, smiling, already certain she would run. And already knowing there was nowhere left to go. Emily didn't remember opening the door. One moment she was curled in the driver's seat, hands clamped over her ears, breath coming out in broken sobs. The next, cold night air was tearing into her lungs as she stumbled away from the car, branches clawing at her jacket, gravel biting into her palms as she fell forward. Run. The word wasn't a thought, it was an order carved into her bones. Behind her, glass shattered. She screamed then, the sound ripping through the forest as fear finally broke loose. Footsteps thundered after her, not rushed, not frantic, steady, confident. Like predators who knew their prey had already lost. Emily ran blindly into the trees. The forest swallowed her whole. Branches whipped across her face and arms, leaving burning lines of pain. Roots rose out of the ground like traps, snagging her boots, sending her crashing down again and again. She forced herself up every time, lungs screaming, heart pounding so violently it blurred her vision. She didn't dare look back. She could hear them now, breathing, low and excited, voices muttering to each other in a language that sounded half-formed, broken by laughter. Sometimes they mimicked her voice, repeating her sobs in warped, mocking echoes. "Help, help." The sound came from her left. She almost turned toward it before she realized it was wrong. The pitch was off. The rhythm too slow. Like something that had learned the word without understanding what it meant. Emily veered sharply to the right and burst through a wall of brush, tumbling down a steep incline. She rolled hard, slamming into a tree trunk with enough force to knock the air from her lungs. She lay there, gasping, the taste of blood thick on her tongue. Silence crept back in. No laughter. No footsteps. Just her ragged breathing and the slow drip of moisture from the leaves above. She pressed a hand over her mouth and stayed perfectly still. Minutes passed, or maybe seconds. Time had no shape here. When she finally dared to move, pain flared through her ribs. She bit back a cry and pushed herself upright. The forest around her looked different now. Denser. The trees stood closer together, their trunks twisted and knotted like clenched fists. The fog was thicker too, curling around her ankles, clinging to her skin. She realized with a sick twist of dread that she couldn't hear the road anymore. No distant engine hum. No wind through open space. She was deep inside Bloodwood. Emily fumbled for her phone again, knowing it was pointless. The screen lit up weakly, 2% battery. No signal. She turned on the flashlight anyway. The beam cut a narrow path through the darkness, illuminating damp leaves and something scratched into the bark of a nearby tree. Symbols. Crude shapes carved deep into the wood, dark with old, dried blood. Handprints surrounded them, small, large, smeared, overlapping. Some had too many fingers. Her stomach churned. "This isn't real," she whispered. Saying it out loud felt fragile, like glass about to shatter. This can't be real. A memory surfaced then, uninvited. A gas station an hour back. A flickering fluorescent light. An old man behind the counter staring at her too long. "You don't want to take that road," he'd said quietly when she mentioned the shortcut. "Forests don't like strangers." She'd laughed it off. Emily squeezed her eyes shut, fighting the surge of regret and terror. When she opened them again, the flashlight flickered. Something moved at the edge of the beam. She spun toward it, heart leaping into her throat, but it was only a hanging strip of skin caught on a branch. Human skin. She gagged, stumbling backward. A sound came from behind her then, close enough that she felt it more than heard it, a breath brushing her neck. "Found her," a voice murmured. Emily screamed and bolted. She ran until her legs burned and her vision tunneled, until the forest floor leveled out and she burst into a small clearing. She skidded to a stop, chest heaving. In the center stood a structure. A cabin, or what was left of one. Its walls were crooked, sagging inward as if trying to collapse into itself. Bones hung from the porch in tangled strings, clacking softly as they swayed. A dark stain soaked into the ground beneath the front steps, the earth blackened and sunken. Hope flickered anyway. Shelter meant walls. Walls meant protection. She rushed toward the door and shoved it open. The smell hit her first, rot, rust, and something sweetly decayed. Inside, the cabin was lit by a single lantern casting long, distorted shadows across the walls. Furniture lay broken and stacked haphazardly, splintered wood stained dark. And in the corner. Emily froze. A man was chained to the wall, head slumped forward. His clothes were torn, his body gaunt, ribs visible beneath his skin. For a heartbeat, she thought he was dead. Then his head snapped up. His eyes were wild. Desperate. "Get out," he rasped, voice shredded raw. "They let you find this place." Before she could ask what he meant, the door slammed shut behind her. The lantern flickered violently. From outside, laughter rose again, closer, hungrier. "They love it when you think you're safe," the man whispered as shadows pressed against the cabin walls. And Emily understood the truth too late. The forest hadn't been chasing her away. It had been hurting her in. The lantern swung violently, casting the cabin into fragments of light and shadow. Each sway made the walls seem closer, the ceiling lower, as if the structure itself were breathing. Emily backed away from the door, her spine hitting the rough wooden wall. Her eyes stayed locked on the man chained in the corner. His wrists were raw and bloody, skin eaten away where iron cuffs bit deep. One leg was twisted at an unnatural angle, the bone pushing against the skin like it wanted out. "They're outside," she whispered, though she already knew. The man gave a humorless laugh that turned into a cough. "They're always outside." A heavy thud hit the cabin wall. Then another. Slow. Testing. Fingers scraped along the wood, nails dragging deliberately, savoring the sound. Emily's stomach clenched as shadows slid across the narrow window, tall and warped. "Please," she said, stepping toward the chained man. "Help me. There has to be a way out." He studied her face, eyes lingering on her fear like it was something familiar. Something he'd worn once. "What's your name?" he asked. "Emily." He nodded slowly. "They'll remember that." Another thud. This one harder. The cabin groaned. "My name's Carter," he continued. "Or it was. Don't know what it is now." Emily crouched beside him, hands shaking as she searched the room for something, anything, that could break the chains. A rusted axe head lay on a table nearby, its handle snapped clean in half. "Why are you chained?" she asked. Carter's mouth twitched. "Because I stopped being fun." A sharp knock echoed from the door. 3 deliberate taps. Knock. 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 Emily flinched violently. "They're polite now," she whispered. "They like games," Carter said. "And rules." The door creaked open slowly. Cold air poured in, carrying the scent of wet earth and blood. A figure stepped inside, ducking beneath the low frame. Lantern light revealed its face, sunken cheeks, scarred skin stretched tight over bone, eyes gleaming with excitement. It smiled. "Emily," it said, tasting her name. "You run good." More shapes crowded the doorway behind it. Watching. Waiting. Carter leaned closer to Emily, voice barely audible. "Don't answer them. They hate being ignored." The creature tilted its head. "We give you choice," it said. "That's fair." Emily's nails dug into her palms. "Choice." It nodded enthusiastically. "Forest or cabin?" Her heart hammered. "What happens if I choose the cabin?" The creature's grin widened. "You stay." Carter let out a low, broken sound that might have been laughter. "And the forest?" Emily asked, dread pooling deep in her gut. The creature gestured toward the darkness beyond the door. "You run." Another voice chimed in from outside, higher pitched, eager. "We hunt." Emily shook her head. "That's not a choice." The creature stepped closer, its breath hot and rancid. "It is for us." A sudden scream tore through the forest. It was distant, but unmistakably human. Emily's blood ran cold. "Someone else is out there." The creatures exchanged looks. One of them giggled. "Not for long," it said. The lead creature turned back to Emily. Tick-tock. Panic surged. Her eyes darted around the cabin again, and then she saw it. Beneath a pile of rotting cloth near Carter's feet lay a small key ring, half buried in grime. Keys. Her breath caught. Carter followed her gaze. His expression changed, fear, then something darker. "Don't," he whispered. "I can help you," she said urgently. "We can both get out." He shook his head. "You don't understand. If I leave, they'll chase me too. They don't like unfinished things." The creature noticed the shift. Its smile vanished. "What you looking at?" it asked sharply. Emily lunged. She snatched the keys and jammed one into the cuff around Carter's wrist. It took 3 tries before it clicked. The sound echoed like a gunshot. The creature shrieked. "No!" Chaos exploded. Carter yanked his arm free, screaming in pain as torn skin peeled away from the metal. Emily grabbed his shoulder, hauling him upright as the creatures surged forward, crashing through the door in a frenzy of limbs and teeth. "Run!" Carter shouted. They burst out the back of the cabin through a rotting wall, wood splintering beneath their weight. Emily half-dragged Carter into the forest as the cabin behind them shook with furious howls. They didn't get far. Carter stumbled, collapsing to the ground with a broken cry. Emily tried to pull him up, tears streaming down her face. "I can't," he gasped. Legs gone. Footsteps thundered closer. Carter grabbed her wrist, grip desperate and crushing. Listen to me, he said, eyes locking onto hers. There are rules. Stay on the animal trails, they hate them. Don't cross running water unless you have to. And whatever you hear. A shadow fell over them. A massive figure loomed from the trees, its body covered in scars and bone fragments woven into its flesh. It raised something heavy and sharp. Carter shoved Emily hard. Don't look back. She fell forward, rolling down a slope, the impact knocking the breath from her lungs. She scrambled to her feet just as a wet crunch echoed behind her, followed by a scream that cut off too suddenly. Emily ran. She ran as Bloodwood erupted into laughter behind her, the hunt renewed, the game alive again. And somewhere deep in the forest, something ancient stirred, pleased that the rules had been broken. And even more pleased that Emily was still alive. Emily ran until her lungs felt like they were tearing apart from the inside. Branches lashed her face, roots tore at her ankles, and the forest floor pitched and dipped like it was trying to throw her down. Carter's scream still echoed in her head, cut short, unfinished, looping over and over until it became part of the pounding in her skull. She didn't slow down. She didn't look back. Not even when she heard something heavy crashing through the trees behind her. Not even when laughter burst out again, loud and wild, spilling through the darkness like a celebration. Her foot slipped on wet leaves, and she went down hard, rolling into a shallow ravine. Pain exploded through her shoulder as she slammed into the dirt. She bit down on her scream so hard she tasted blood. Silence followed. Not the empty silence from before, but a waiting one. Emily forced herself to stay still. Her body trembled uncontrollably, muscles spasming from exhaustion and fear. She pressed her face into the cold earth, breathing in rot and damp soil, trying to make herself small. Minutes passed. Then, footsteps. Slow. Measured. They moved along the edge of the ravine, circling, stopping now and then as if listening. Emily squeezed her eyes shut, heart hammering so violently she was sure they could hear it. A voice drifted down. Emily. Her breath caught. The voice was soft. Familiar. Her mother's voice. Emily, sweetheart, it called gently. You don't have to hide. Tears spilled from her eyes. Her chest ached with sudden, desperate longing. For warmth. For safety. For home. It's not real, she told herself. It's not real. Another voice joined in, her younger brother's this time. Laughing. Teasing. Come on, Em. You always get lost. Her fingers dug into the dirt. Every instinct screamed at her to answer, to call back, to prove she was still human in a place that wanted to strip that away. She clamped a hand over her mouth. The voices grew closer. You're cold, her mother murmured. You're scared. Let us help you. Emily's eyes snapped open as she felt breath brush her ear. Look at me. She jerked away with a stifled sob. A face hovered inches from hers, wrong and shifting, like it couldn't decide what it wanted to be. For a moment it wore her mother's features. Then they melted, bone stretching, skin tearing away to reveal yellowed teeth beneath. Emily screamed and scrambled backward, slipping in the mud and slamming against the ravine wall. The creature laughed, high, delighted. She almost did, it chirped. Shapes dropped down into the ravine around her. 3 of them. 4. Their movements were jerky and eager, bodies scarred and twisted, eyes shining with anticipation. Emily surged to her feet and ran again, clawing her way up the slope and bursting back into the trees. Pain shot through her shoulder with every step, but fear drowned it out. She ran until the forest thinned. Moonlight spilled through the branches ahead. Water. A creek cut through the woods, its surface black and rippling. Emily skidded to a stop at the bank, chest heaving. Carter's words flashed through her mind. Don't cross running water unless you have to. Behind her, branches snapped. She had to. Emily plunged into the creek. The cold was shocking, stealing her breath as water soaked her clothes and dragged at her legs. She nearly lost her footing, hands flailing as she staggered across slippery stones. She made it to the other side and collapsed onto the bank, gasping, muscles screaming. The forest behind her erupted in angry shrieks. The creatures crowded the edge of the water, pacing, snarling, hurling insults that sounded half childish, half feral. One of them dipped a hand into the stream and recoiled, screeching. They didn't follow. Relief washed over her, thin and fragile, but real. Emily dragged herself farther from the creek and crawled beneath a fallen tree, wedging herself into the hollow space beneath its roots. She curled into herself, shivering violently, teeth chattering. Her phone vibrated weakly in her pocket. She froze. Slowly, she pulled it out. 1% battery. No signal. Then the screen lit up. A text message appeared. Unknown, you can't stay there forever. Emily's blood turned to ice. Another message followed. Unknown, we know where you are. She threw the phone away, sobbing silently, pressing her fists against her eyes as if that could make it all disappear. From across the creek, a voice drifted through the trees, low and calm. You learn fast, it said. Emily peeked out from her hiding place. A taller figure stood at the water's edge, watching her. Unlike the others, it didn't twitch or grin wildly. Its movements were controlled. Deliberate. Its face was a patchwork of scars, but its eyes were old, intelligent. Forest likes you, it continued. You listen. You run. You survive. Emily swallowed hard. What do you want? The figure tilted its head. Same thing it always wants. The moonlight dimmed as clouds rolled overhead. The shadows deepened, stretching toward her. To see how long you last. It stepped back into the trees, disappearing as easily as smoke. Emily hugged her knees to her chest, shaking uncontrollably. She had crossed the water. She had broken one rule and survived. But Bloodwood was patient. And it had already started whispering new ones. Emily woke to pain. It bloomed through her body in slow, heavy waves, her shoulder throbbing, her legs cramped and stiff, her skin raw from cold and scratches. For a moment, she didn't know where she was. Then the smell hit her again, wet leaves, rot and something faintly coppery. Bloodwood. She bolted upright with a sharp gasp, cracking her head against the underside of the fallen tree. Stars burst across her vision. She froze, listening. Nothing. No laughter. No footsteps. No voices. Just the creek murmuring nearby and the soft creak of branches swaying above her. Dawn crept weakly through the trees, turning the fog a sickly gray. The forest looked different in the daylight, but not safer. If anything, it felt more exposed, like a butcher's room with the lights turned on. Bones lay half buried in the dirt. Torn scraps of clothing hung from branches like warnings. Deep gouges scarred tree trunks, claw marks layered over older ones. This place had been feeding for a long time. Emily crawled out from her hiding spot and stood slowly, wincing as her shoulder protested. Her clothes were soaked and stiff, her hands trembling uncontrollably. She wrapped her arms around herself, teeth chattering. I have to move, she thought. Staying still is how you die. She followed the creek upstream, keeping the water close but not stepping into it again. Carter's rules echoed in her mind like a prayer. Animal trails. Water as a boundary. Don't listen to the voices. As she walked, the forest seemed to watch in silence. Birds didn't sing. No insects buzzed. Even the wind felt muted, as if Bloodwood was holding its breath. She came across the first body an hour later. It lay face down near the water, bloated and pale, clothes shredded beyond recognition. Emily recognized the hiking backpack immediately, bright blue, one strap torn clean off. She'd seen it at the gas station. A college kid. Laughing. Alive. She staggered back, bile rising in her throat. The man's back was carved with symbols, deep, deliberate cuts arranged in the same pattern she'd seen on the trees. His fingers were missing. His mouth hung open in a frozen scream. Emily dropped to her knees and vomited. When she was done, she sobbed quietly, hugging herself as the reality settled in. This wasn't random. This wasn't chaos. It was ritual. A sound behind her made her spin around, heart leaping, but it wasn't one of them. A woman stood among the trees. She looked human. Normal. Mid-30s, maybe. Dirt-streaked face, dark hair tangled and matted. Her eyes were sunken, haunted, but sane. Emily scrambled to her feet. "Oh my God," she whispered. "You're real." The woman raised her hands slowly. "Easy," she said hoarsely. "I'm not with them." Relief crashed over Emily so hard her knees nearly buckled. "Thank God. I didn't think anyone else was." "They let me live," the woman interrupted. The words hit like ice water. Emily hesitated. "What do you mean?" The woman stepped closer, limping slightly. "Name's Rachel. I've been here 4 days." She laughed bitterly. "Or 4 weeks. Hard to tell." Emily's chest tightened. "How are you alive?" Rachel's gaze flicked to the trees. "Because they get bored. Because they like variety." Her mouth twisted. "Because sometimes, they want to see what you'll do." She glanced at the body near the creek and nodded grimly. "He screamed too much." Emily's stomach churned. "There has to be a way out. A road. Something." Rachel studied her face for a long moment. "You crossed the water." Emily nodded slowly. "That's why you're still breathing," Rachel said. "But it won't save you forever." They walked together in tense silence, sticking close to the creek. Emily told her about the car, the cabin, Carter. Rachel listened without interrupting, her expression darkening with every word. "The big one spoke to you, didn't it?" Rachel asked finally. Emily's steps faltered. "Yes." Rachel swallowed. "That means you're marked." "What does that mean?" Emily asked, dread coiling tight in her chest. "It means Bloodwood wants something from you," Rachel said quietly. "Not just your body." They stopped near a clearing littered with old fire pits and piles of bones bleached white by time. Totems made of skulls and antlers stood arranged in a rough circle. Rachel's voice dropped to a whisper. "This is where they choose." "Choose what?" Emily asked. Rachel met her eyes, tears welling. "Who runs? And who stays?" A rustle came from the trees. Then another. Laughter followed, soft, amused, spreading from all directions. Emily's heart sank as shadows stepped into the clearing, surrounding them slowly, patiently. The tall, scarred one emerged last. "Morning," it said pleasantly. Rachel backed away, shaking her head. "I did what you asked," she pleaded. "I didn't cross. I didn't run." The creature smiled at her. "You did good." Then it looked at Emily. "And now," it said softly, "it's your turn to choose." The forest leaned closer, waiting. And Emily understood with sickening clarity. Bloodwood didn't just hunt. It tested. And whatever you became while trying to survive, was what it kept. Emily's mind screamed run, but her body refused to obey. The clearing felt wrong, too open, too deliberate. Bones crunched beneath her boots as she shifted her weight, the sound echoing like a confession. The creatures stood in a loose circle now, their movements slow, unhurried. They knew she wasn't going anywhere. The tall one stepped closer. In the pale morning light, Emily could see how old it really was. Scars layered over scars. Flesh patched and repatched like it had been rebuilt too many times. Its eyes were dark, reflective, and disturbingly calm. Choice, it repeated. Run, or stay. Emily swallowed. What happens if I run? The creature tilted its head, considering. You get to keep being you. For a while. Her breath hitched. And if I stay? A murmur rippled through the others. Anticipation. Hunger. You stop hurting, it said gently. You stop being afraid. Rachel let out a broken sob. Don't listen to them, she whispered to Emily. That's how they lie. The tall one's gaze snapped to Rachel. Its expression hardened. Quiet. One of the others lunged forward and struck Rachel across the face with the back of its hand. The sound was wet and sharp. Rachel crumpled to the ground, blood spilling from her mouth. Emily screamed and rushed toward her, but arms caught her from behind. Hands like iron wrapped around her wrists, yanking her backward. The grip was painful, crushing. Stop! Emily cried. Please. The tall one raised a hand, and the others froze. This is the lesson, it said calmly. Watch. Two creatures dragged Rachel to the center of the clearing. She kicked weakly, sobbing, her strength already gone. They forced her down onto her knees. I did what you wanted, Rachel gasped. I survived. The tall one crouched in front of her. You survived badly. Its fingers slid into Rachel's mouth, prying her jaw open. Emily thrashed uselessly, screaming until her throat burned. Please, Rachel choked, eyes locked on Emily's. Don't let them. The creature snapped her neck. The sound was quiet. Casual. Rachel's body slumped forward, lifeless. Emily's scream tore out of her, raw and animal. Something inside her cracked open, spilling rage and horror and disbelief all at once. She kicked backward, slamming her heel into the shin of the creature holding her. It howled in pain, loosening its grip. Emily twisted free and ran. The forest exploded into motion. She tore through the trees, lungs on fire, tears blinding her. Branches ripped at her hair and clothes, but she didn't slow. The ground dropped suddenly, and she slid down a muddy slope, barely catching herself before plunging into another ravine. The sounds behind her were different now. No laughter. Just pursuit. Heavy footfalls. Breath snarling close to her ear. Something brushed her shoulder, leaving a burning scratch. Emily screamed and stumbled forward, crashing into the ravine wall. She clawed at the dirt, fingers bleeding as she scrambled upward. Hands grabbed her ankle, yanking her back down. She kicked wildly, connecting with something solid. The grip loosened, and she scrambled free, bursting back into the trees. Her vision tunneled. Her thoughts fragmented. Animal trails. She forced herself to look for them, faint paths pressed into the dirt, narrow and winding. She veered onto one, heart pounding. The forest resisted. Roots rose like grasping fingers. Branches bent low, striking her face. She felt the woods pushing her off the trail, steering her wrong. Emily screamed in defiance and kept going. The trail led to an old logging road, cracked, overgrown, barely recognizable. Hope surged painfully in her chest. A road meant exit. She ran down it, feet slapping against broken asphalt, until she saw something ahead that made her slow. A car. Half sunken into the dirt. Rusted. Old. And inside. Emily approached cautiously, dread creeping back in. Through the shattered windshield, she saw bones strapped into the driver's seat. The skull had been wired into place, mouth frozen open in a silent scream. Carved into the hood were words, deep and jagged. "Survivors stay." Emily staggered back. A voice whispered from behind her. Calm. Familiar. "You made it farther than most." She turned slowly. The tall creature stood at the edge of the road, alone. No pack. No laughter. "Why are you doing this?" Emily demanded, voice shaking. "What do you want from me?" The creature studied her with something like curiosity. "This forest was starving once," it said. "People came. People stayed. People changed. You're not people," Emily spat. A hint of a smile touched its lips. "Neither are you anymore." Something cold twisted in her chest. "You broke rules," it continued. "You crossed water. You freed a prisoner. You ran when we told you not to." Emily clenched her fists. "Because I'm not like you." "Not yet," it corrected. "But you could be." It stepped aside, gesturing down the road, where it vanished into darkness. "Keep running," it said. "Or come back." The forest seemed to hold its breath again. Emily looked down the road, then back at the creature. And for the first time since entering Bloodwood, she realized the most terrifying truth of all. She wasn't sure which choice would kill her faster. And she wasn't sure which one she deserved. Emily stood alone on the logging road, shaking. The forest waited. It didn't rush her. It didn't scream or laugh. It simply watched, the way a thing does when it already knows the ending and is curious how long it will take you to understand it too. The words carved into the rusted car burned in her mind. "Survivors stay." She turned and ran. Her legs moved on instinct, pain screaming through every muscle, lungs tearing with each breath. The road stretched ahead of her, cracked asphalt swallowed by weeds and roots, twisting deeper into the forest instead of out of it. She didn't slow. She didn't look back. Minutes passed. Then more. The road never changed. Emily skidded to a stop, chest heaving, and stared ahead in disbelief. The same bent signpost leaned at the curve. The same split tree loomed to the right. The same rusted car sat half buried in the dirt behind her. She had run in a circle. A laugh echoed softly through the trees. "Roads don't leave Bloodwood," the tall creature said as it stepped out from the shadows. "They only remind you where you started." Emily backed away, heart slamming against her ribs. "You said I could run." "I said you could," it replied calmly. "Not that you'd escape." Her voice broke. "Then why let me try?" The creature considered this. "Hope makes the meat sweeter." Something inside Emily snapped. She screamed, not in fear, but in fury. And grabbed a broken length of rusted pipe from the ground. She swung it with everything she had, smashing it into the creature's face. Bone cracked. The creature staggered back, more surprised than hurt. Emily didn't stop. She hit it again. And again. She screamed with every blow, rage and grief pouring out of her like poison. Images flashed through her mind, Carter's terrified eyes, Rachel's broken body, the bodies by the creek, the voices wearing her family's faces. "You don't get to keep me." She screamed. The creature collapsed to one knee. The forest went silent. For a moment, just one, Emily thought. She had one. Then the creature began to laugh. It laughed until its shoulders shook, until dark fluid spilled from its split mouth. Slowly, it stood back up. The damage she'd done knit itself together with wet, grinding sounds, bones sliding back into place. "You fought," it said, almost warmly. "That's good. Hands closed around Emily from behind. She screamed as she was dragged backward, the pipe ripped from her grip. The other creatures emerged from the trees, not frantic now, not playful. Reverent. They pulled her through the forest, ignoring her kicks and cries, until the trees opened into the clearing again. The circle of bones. The totems. The place of choosing. Emily was thrown to the ground at the center. She tried to crawl away, but a foot pressed against her back, pinning her down. The tall creature stepped forward. Bloodwood doesn't take everyone, it said. Most just feed it. It crouched beside her, lowering its voice. But some survive long enough to hear it. To understand it. Emily sobbed, shaking her head. I won't be like you. The creature smiled. None of us were. The ground beneath her hands felt warm. Emily looked down. The dirt was dark, soaked through with old blood. Symbols carved into the earth pulsed faintly, like veins beneath skin. The forest whispered around her, voices overlapping, pressing into her skull. Stay. Belong. Never be alone again. Her scream tore out as pain exploded through her body. Not sharp, deep. Like something reaching inside her, pulling, reshaping. Memories flooded her mind, every fear, every regret, every moment she'd felt small and helpless. The forest drank them. Emily convulsed, nails digging into the dirt as laughter and chanting filled the air. She felt something hardening inside her chest, not courage. Acceptance. The pain faded. The fear went quiet. When it was over, Emily lay still, chest rising slowly. The tall creature watched her carefully. Emily, it said. Her eyes opened. They were darker now. Clearer. She pushed herself up onto her hands and knees, then stood. Her body felt wrong, lighter, stronger, no longer shaking. She touched her face, expecting blood, tears. There were none. The creatures stepped back, giving her space. The tall one inclined its head. Welcome, it said. Emily looked around the clearing. The bones no longer horrified her. The symbols made sense now. She could feel the forest, its hunger, its patience, its endless waiting. She inhaled deeply. Bloodwood breathed back. Far away, an engine sound drifted through the trees. Headlights cut through the darkness. A car slowed at the broken road, a driver peering out nervously at the forest ahead. Emily smiled. She stepped into the shadows as the tall creature's voice whispered beside her. Don't stop. Don't scream. Don't look back. And from deep within Bloodwood, something ancient and satisfied watched the road. As Emily waited for the next wrong turn.